What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Producing in a Pandemic, where we talk about tools and resources for artists and creatives. I'm your host, William Thompson, and in today's episode, we're continuing with part 3 of this topic of getting online production services, utilizing online production services. We started this conversation a couple of weeks ago with Fiverr. Fiverr is one of the leading freelance marketplaces, and they do more than just music. We talked about how they offer a myriad of services, and whether you're a musician, an artist, a producer, there are several things that are available out there for you that will be beneficial for your career as a whole, not just your music, but for your career as a whole. Things like graphic design, web design, marketing, social media management, social media planning and strategy. These are all things that come into play and can be found by utilizing the sellers that are on Fiverr. Last week, we continued the conversation. We talked about SoundBetter. SoundBetter, formerly owned by Spotify, is one of the world's leading music marketplaces. Now, this one is music specifically. And one of the main differences between Fiverr and SoundBetter is the fact that SoundBetter has industry vetted musicians, singers, and engineers. It's a wonderful thing about it, the fact that there are people on there. While there are some that are amateur, that may not have a lot of credits, there are also some that have worked with some of the best. So me being a gospel musician, a gospel artist, that means for me the best is Kirk Franklin, Fred Hammond, John P. Key. For you, the best may be Beyonce. It could be Nicki Minaj. It could be the Migos. It could be, any number of rappers or singers. It could be Dolly Parton. It could be Whitney Houston. It could be Carrie Underwood. There's so many talented musicians and singers out there, and a lot of these professionals have worked with some of the best. So if you want to work with Justin Bieber's producer, or if you want to work with Chris Brown's mixing engineer, or if you want to work with a singer who's done background vocals for Celine Dion, whoever it is that your sound emulates, you can work with those people and you can find them on SoundBetter. They also have the ability to license tracks. So if you need a track or a beat for your particular song, or you want to license one so that you can write to it, that's something you can do through them as well, which I love. But we're going to move on. We are talking about a new service today, and that is gospelproducers.com. Now, I know some of you heard gospel and was like, huh? What? Gospel? I don't do gospel. I'm a jazz musician. I do rock. I do country. I do blues. I do pop. I do EDM. Whatever it may be, and that's fine. You don't have to do gospel music in order to utilize this site, and that's one of the things I love about it. There are some universal tools and resources that are available, but we're going to go ahead and get into that. Y'all stay with me. I know if gospel might not be your thing, that you might have an aversion, but go ahead, stay with me. Trust me, you're going to love what I have to show you. So let's go ahead and get into it. gospelproducers.com. So gospelproducers.com is a wonderful website, in my opinion. It is one of my favorite to utilize, and it's one of the first that I actually started to utilize when I started doing production during the pandemic. I was really kind of trying to figure out, what do I need to do? How do I get started? And I just thought about, what are the foundations that I need? And I did what I could with my song at the time. And the song, it shameless plug, the song that is called Just For Me. That's how I got started doing production. It's out now on all digital platforms. But when I first, was working on it, it's like, man, I don't really have an organ, so I can't really do organ the way I want. Or I'm not a bass player, so I don't really know like all of the bass movements the way that I should. I don't really play strings. I have a background in instrumental band, but I was never a strings player. So understanding the voicing and chording of those instruments is a little challenging. And I understood that, and I understood where my shortcomings were. But it's okay because I didn't focus on them. I did not allow them to stop me. I didn't allow them to keep me from being productive, to keep me from doing what I needed to do. So I found this site, gospelproducers.com. The owner of Gospel Producers is a man named John Mike. John Mike is a producer, a musician in his own right. He's an engineer, and he has done a lot for the gospel community. I would be remiss if I did not mention him by name. He personally is a big influence for me from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but also in terms of just his heart and his desire to make things more accessible for musicians, singers, artists, churches, anyone in that scene. And one of the things that he did was he created this company called Gospel Producers. And when he first started it, and this is where, even if you're not a gospel musician, this is where some of the good stuff comes into play. When he first started it, he was doing blogs and stuff like that. But then he started doing some master classes. And these master classes are really incredible. One of the ones that I recently got, and I'm currently in the middle of going through, is Advanced Logic Pro X production with Jan Hunter Jr. Jan Hunter Jr. is another talented multi-instrumentalist, producer, engineer, all that. And he actually has a channel on YouTube. I may see if I can put it in the cards for the video or in the description so that you all can check him out as well. But he is the one that's facilitating this masterclass, and John Mike has, just utilized his relationships and, brought together musicians, producers, engineers in order to offer some insight in regards to some of the basics. And some of these things are, particular to gospel, but then there's some aspects of, these master classes that can be applied to anyone. This Logic production class can be used for anyone. If you use Logic Pro on a regular basis, and you need to understand things like shortcuts, if you need to understand how to record more efficiently, how to produce more efficiently, this class is available. There's also a beginning version that Jan teaches as well on the site. One of the other things I love is that in addition to those basic master classes, based on particular programs that you're using, like Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton Live, there's also some master classes that have been done by top gospel producers. And there's one producer in particular that I think everyone, if they're able to, should watch. And part of the reason that I think they should watch is because he goes over his process of production in terms of just understanding how to produce a record from start to finish. And he talks about the conversation that he has with artists. If you're a producer or aspiring producer, you got to know how to talk to artists. You know what I mean? You got to know how to have that conversation in terms of, well, what exactly are you looking for? What is your vision for this song? And it's important to be able to have those conversations in order to have them in a healthy way. That's very important because as a producer, it's not your job to produce your vision. It's your job to help the artist realize theirs. And that's really important. And he talks about that. He also, does other things in terms of, showing how he records drums, for example, and how he will coach and produce drummers through a session. no matter what genre you're doing, if you are working with musicians, you need to know how to speak their language. You need to know how to communicate effectively with them in a way that doesn't belittle them, in a way that doesn't, make them feel bad for not playing something the way you wanted it played, but just simply explaining to them what you want so that they can give it to you. And that's great. His masterclass, the Logic Pro classes, the Pro Tools class, those are all great classes in terms of understanding just the process of production. And I think those are great aspects of the program. I think those are things that everyone should take a look at. The other thing, before getting into the marketplace, I want to talk about one other unexpected thing that comes, unexpected byproduct that comes with gospel producers. For those who may not be familiar with it, if you're familiar, then you already know all these things. But if you've never used gospel producers, then you should take a look at these. Gospel producers recently, within the past couple of years, has released products, not just classes, but actual products in terms of tools and virtual instruments and things like that that you can use within your software. One of the things that I like is a product called Loop Elements, and there are three or four volumes of Loop Elements. And Loop Elements basically has these different loops similar to the Apple loops that you'll find in GarageBand or in Logic, or things that you might find in programs like Splice. These are considered to be quote unquote one shots or looping rhythms. So you can find things like claps, snaps, shakers, bass drops, sweepers, all of these various tools that can be helpful in terms of either maintaining tempo, maintaining feel within your song. There's some items that are great in terms of just creating transitions in the song. I know that their suspended cymbal, I use that a lot. I'm not even going to front. I use their suspended cymbal a lot. Previously, I was using a sample that I found on YouTube, and that one just wasn't great. It was okay. It did the job in terms of the demos I was looking for, but when it came to actual production and what I needed, I went to Loop Elements by gospel producers. So those are one of the products that they use, the Loop Elements line. They have Volume 1, Volume 2, Loop Elements Extreme, and then I believe there is Loop Elements Deluxe, which is designed to be just more integrated, more customization options and things like that. So that's all available through gospelproducers.com. They also have what is called Yash's Drum Warehouse. That is one thing that I'm looking forward to. I haven't gotten it yet, but and that's more so just a matter of right now, just priority in terms of production resources and things like that. But I am looking forward to getting it. Yash's Drum Warehouse is a collection of samples that have been obtained by one of the best engineers in gospel music named John Yash. So John Yash is one of the best, one of the top engineers. He has worked with artists like Fred Hammond, Kirk Franklin, almost any of your favorite artists, CeCe Winans, any of your favorite artists that you love in gospel, he has mixed for them. So people from Marvin Winans to CeCe Winans, BB, Yolanda Adams, the Clark sisters, Tasha Cobbs. You can find all these people and find his thumbprint on their project, which is great. They work. He is just one of the top names in gospel, one of the top names in gospel for mixing. And one of the things that he does when he's mixing is just what's called drum sampling replacement. It's basically a technique of layering. So In addition to the raw drum file, the raw drum audio, sometimes the drums may sound a little thin, just depending on how it was recorded, depending on a lot of different factors. And when you listen to it in the entire mix, while it may have sounded okay live, when you listen to it for the album's sake, it doesn't have that same punch. It doesn't really stick out. It kind of falls into the mix. So what he will do is he will bring in these samples and he will layer them in order to create a fuller sound. A sound, that a lot of people refer to now as smack. And that is just that punch that cuts through the mix so that the drums aren't lost in the background, but can actually really be sitting in the mix alongside the other instruments. So Yash's Drum Warehouse is another aspect of gospelproducers.com. There are two volumes for that. They have Yash's Drum Warehouse Volume 1, Volume 2. Has more drums, has some presets that are available that can be used with plugins like Steven Slate's Trigger, things like that, in order to make it more compatible and make it something that can easily be used. And again, like I said, this is something that works great no matter what your genre is. So even if you're doing pop, if you're doing R&B, and you just need something with a little more kick, you need something with a little more punch. Maybe the kick drum isn't hidden the way it needs to. You can use these samples that have been sampled from great kits. Had amazing drummer that was working on them in order to get the tones that you need, and you can use that in order to make sure that you have a good, solid, consistent tone across the board for your projects. So those are some great features that come with gospelproducers.com. But we already talked about it. We talked about this is an episode about production services. So in addition to their master classes, in addition to their products, they have what they call their producer marketplace. Their producer marketplace is amazing. I personally use it. There is one guy in particular that is my go-to. When I need someone to cut organ on one of my songs, he's the guy. No one else. He alone is the guy. He is the only one I work with. He has been amazing. And the people that you're working with on there, they typically have to provide some sort of sample of their work, so you can know who you're working with prior to. You're not just, working with anybody. You're not just working with people. It's like, they might be good. I'm not sure. I've never really heard them play. Never really seen them do this. Never really seen them do that. You can see and hear what it is that they work on. You can see and hear what their style is, what their touch is, what their approach is. And like I said, if you're someone who's into gospel music, even if you're into soul music, even if you're not necessarily into gospel, but you want some gospel elements, this is still a great site for you to go to. So I strongly encourage you, take a look at the producer marketplace. The way it's basically set up is you can search by category or view really by category, based on, the instrument that's played. I want someone who can play organ. I want someone who plays bass. I want someone who can record synth keys for me. I want someone who can do mixing, who can do mastering. All of that. All of those things can, kind of go into play and can be helpful and available, for you, especially if you are someone who does more of a crossover style, whether that is, again, something like soul or inspirational music, or if it is, just, standard gospel. This is still a great site to look at. Again, this is one that I use on a regular basis, so I wouldn't be giving it to y'all if I didn't think it was any good. So definitely, check it out, and I hope that you all like that particular service. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Producing in a Pandemic. If you enjoyed today's episode and our topic of conversation, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. We're available on all podcasting platforms, Apple, Google, and Spotify. You can also find us here on YouTube Thursday mornings at 8 a.m. So thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And until next time, keep creating. Bye.